Tonight, we will discover the story of history's greatest conqueror and most merciless warrior. Once there were horse hooves echoing in the Mongolian steppes, the ringing of bowstrings, and the birth epic of a man who would make half the world tremble. Genghis Khan, not just a warlord, but a legendary soul who was the shaper of the modern world, the destroyer and founder of civilizations. Before we begin, don't forget to support us by liking our content and subscribing to the channel. Also, share your location and current time with us. Sometimes our stories can take you to the endless plains of the Mongolian steppes. Sometimes they can make us witness a transformation stretching from childhood to imperial greatness. Now let's dim the lights, open the window for a light grass scent, and tonight let's embark together on Genghis Khan's unforgettable journey. In 1162, near the Khenti Mountains of present-day Mongolia, a Kayat tribe leader named Yesugei Batur was returning with his wife Hurlun to their winter camp. That season was unusually cold. Snow had fallen early. Nomadic tribes were trying to complete their winter preparations. Hurlun was pregnant. Birth time was approaching. But no one knew that the child to be born would change the world. On the night of birth, a terrible storm had broken out. The wind was shaking the felt tents. Hail mixed with snow was falling. According to the Tengri belief in Mongolian shamanism, children born on such nights either carried great destiny or brought great disaster. When Hurlun's labor pains began, shamans had surrounded the area, performing rituals. When the child was born, there was clotted blood in his right hand. This was a very important sign for the Mongols. They said, "Kan kolunda turoksen," meaning a child born with blood in hand becomes a great warrior. The shamans immediately made prophecies. This child was born with the blood of his enemies. He is doomed to defeat them. Yesugei named his son Temujin. This name was the name of the Tatar tribe leader he had defeated before. In Mongolian tradition, giving the enemy's name to one's son when victorious was an important custom, and this naming would ensure the child grew up with a warrior spirit. Temujin's childhood passed right in the middle of harsh steppe life. From 4 years old, he learned to ride horses. Mongolian children became accustomed to horses before walking. At 5 years old, he took his first bow in hand. At 6 years old, he caught his first prey. This was not just skill, but a survival struggle. Life in the Mongolian steppes was hard. Winters were freezing, summers scorching, water sources were limited. Tribes were constantly moving, searching for pasture. This nomadic lifestyle made children mature early. When Temujin was 9 years old, his father Yesugei gave him an important task. They would go to meet with the neighboring Ongirat tribe. They would search for a suitable spouse for Temujin. In Mongolian tradition, marriages were arranged at very early ages. Intertribal alliances were strengthened. The Ongirat tribe leader, Sechen, liked Temujin when he saw him. "This child has fire in his eyes," he said. He agreed to give his daughter Berthe to Temujin. Berthe was 10 years old at that time, a beautiful and intelligent girl. This engagement would be an important turning point in Temujin's life. But happiness did not last long. Yesugei was poisoned by the Tatar tribe on his way home. The Tatars were old enemies and had found their opportunity. Yesugei gave his last advice to his son on his deathbed. "Be strong, take your revenge, but never rush." His father's death turned Temujin's world upside down. At 9 years old, he was left fatherless. He should have been the leader of the Kiat tribe. But the tribe elders did not trust such a small child. Most, especially the Taichiud sub-tribe, abandoned Temujin's family. Temujin was left alone with his mother, Hoelun, his 4 brothers, Kasar, Kachiun, Temuge, and his half-brother Belgute, with a few loyal servants. This was the hardest period of his life. Winter was approaching. Food was decreasing. Enemies were beginning to surround them. But Hoelun was a strong woman. She managed to keep her children alive. How they passed that winter was a miracle. They fished, gathered wild onions, sometimes even ate rats. Here, Temujin learned the most important lesson of his life. To survive, you must do everything. You must never be defeated by your pride. At 10 years old, his first big test came. His half-brother Belgute was constantly challenging him, questioning his authority. One day during a hunt, an argument broke out. Belgute said, "You cannot be a leader, you are too small." Temujin could not control his anger. He drew his bow and killed Belgute. This was his first murder in life, but it would not be the last. His mother was very angry. "When you have no enemy except your shadow, why do you make an enemy of your brother?" But Temujin had learned that leadership sometimes requires ruthlessness. At 13 years old, he was captured. The Taichiud tribe took him prisoner, put a kangwe on him. For months he lived like a slave. But this experience strengthened him. He learned how to endure in captivity, how to observe his enemies. He found an opportunity and escaped. At night, he broke the yoke and jumped into the Onon River. His pursuers searched for him, but could not find him. This escape was the beginning of his legend. Temujin cannot be caught. He always finds a way. When he returned to his family at 16 years old, he was already different. Captivity had hardened him, made him smarter. He had gathered a small group around him, had found loyal Nurka warriors. He was no longer a child, but a young leader. His first big move was to take Berthe. When he went to take his fiancée, the Ongirat tribe welcomed him warmly. De Sechen said, "You will be a great man," and gave his daughter. This marriage brought Temujin power and prestige, but happiness was short-lived again. The Merkid tribe raided, kidnapped Berthe. This was a great humiliation for Temujin. He had to do everything to rescue his wife. In this situation, he asked for help from Togrul Khan, the leader of the Keryid tribe, his father's old friend. Togrul Khan was an experienced and powerful leader. He owed a debt to Temujin's father. "It is my debt to help Yesugei's son," he said. He gave him warriors, supported the operation to rescue Berthe. During this operation, Temujin formed an important alliance. He united forces with a childhood friend named Jamuka from the Jadaran tribe. Jamuka was a charismatic and powerful leader. Together with Temujin, they could do great things. Together, they attacked the Merkid tribe. This was Temujin's first major military success. He rescued Berthe, scattered his enemies. But Berthe returned pregnant. She had become pregnant during captivity. This situation saddened Temujin, but he did not reject his wife. After this victory, Temujin's fame began to spread. He was known as a young but successful leader. More warriors were gathering around him. His power was increasing. But this growth also brought problems. Tension began between him and Jamuka. Both wanted to be Khan. They began to see each other as rivals. Jamuka adopted a more aristocratic approach, while Temujin was more populist. This difference turned into a major conflict over time. War between the two old friends became inevitable. The Mongolian steppes were divided in two. Some supported Jamuka, some Temujin. This was not just personal rivalry, but a clash of two different leadership understandings. In the first major battle, Temujin was defeated. Jamuka's army was larger, more experienced. But Temujin did not give up. He learned from defeat, improved his strategy. Most importantly, he maintained his honor, even in defeat. This defeat paradoxically benefited Temujin, because he learned how to deal with defeat. He also saw which of his supporters were truly loyal. Those who stood by him in difficult times were the most valuable treasure. At 25 years old, Temujin had become a serious leader. He was no longer just a young warrior, but a commander who could think strategically. His vision of uniting tribes had formed. He had begun to dream big. During this period, important features in Temujin's character became prominent. Ruthlessness and mercy combined strangely. He was very harsh toward his enemies, but very loyal to his friends. This contradiction made him a leader both feared and loved. His military innovations were also remarkable. He was developing a much more organized system than traditional tribal warfare. He had established a decimal system with Arban 10, Jagun 100, Mingan 1,000, Tumen 10,000 people, ensured discipline. His most important innovation was meritocracy. In traditional Mongolian society, there was a hierarchy determined by birth. But Temujin promoted the talented, brought successful warriors who were not nobly born to high positions. This approach gave him a great advantage. Because talented people in the lower layers of tribes began to flock to Temujin, he was not only gathering warriors, but also attracting the best people to himself. At 35 years old, Temujin made his big move. He started the operation to unite all Mongolian tribes. This was not easy, because it was necessary to resolve centuries-old enmities and blood feuds. His first target was the Tatars. This tribe, the killers of his father, had to be punished. But he was thinking not only of revenge, but also strategically. The Tatars were a strong enemy. Defeating them would bring great prestige. The Tatar war was merciless. Temujin acted harshly. All Tatar men were killed. Only women and children remained. This brutality shocked the Mongolian steppes, but the message was clear. Opposing Temujin results in death. After this victory, Temujin's power increased rapidly. Tribes began to join him one by one, some out of fear, some out of admiration, some out of calculation. But the result was the same. Mongolian unity was being realized. The time had come for the final reckoning with Jamuka. The two old friends faced each other for the last time. But the situation had changed. Temujin was much stronger, much more experienced. In the final battle, Jamuka was defeated. When he was captured, Temujin offered him an honorable death for the sake of their old friendship. Jamuka accepted and was killed without bloodshed. This showed the mercy aspect in Temujin's character. In the year 1206, at 44 years old, Temujin had succeeded in uniting all Mongolian tribes. At the Kurultai, all tribe leaders proclaimed him Genghis Khan, great Khan like the ocean. Temujin no longer existed. There was Genghis Khan. With this title, his vision also expanded. He was now thinking not only of the Mongolian steppes, but of the world. The blue Tengri sent me to rule the entire world, he said. This had become not just megalomania, but a real belief system. His first major target was northern China, ruled by the Jin dynasty. This was a colossal enemy, millions of population, powerful army, advanced technology. But Genghis Khan's self-confidence was complete. The China campaign revealed Genghis Khan's military genius. He used psychological warfare instead of traditional siege tactics. Instead of besieging cities, he surrounded them, condemned those inside to starvation. His most important innovation was mobility. The Mongolian army moved incredibly fast. They could cover 100 kilometers in a day. This speed surprised enemies, did not give them an opportunity to organize defense. When he besieged Zhongdu Beijing, Genghis Khan was 50 years old. After a long siege, the city fell. But instead of looting the city, Genghis Khan made an agreement. The Jin dynasty would pay tribute, would recognize Mongolian sovereignty. This approach showed his maturity. He was no longer just a destructive warrior, but a statesman. He had learned to control and govern instead of destroy. After China, he turned his eyes westward. The Khwarezmian Empire looked large and rich. But this time the reason for war was different. Commercial reasons. Genghis Khan first offered peaceful trade. He sent a large caravan, but the governor of Khwarezm Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad, Inalchik, plundered the caravan, killed the ambassadors. This was a reason for war for Genghis Khan. This time his anger was terrible. "I will level Khwarezm Shah," he swore. But this was not just anger, but also a strategic decision. He needed to remove this obstacle to expand westward. The Khwarezm campaign was Genghis Khan's last major war. He was now old, but his experience was at its peak. He systematically destroyed his enemy, conquered city by city. As Bukhara and Samarkand fell, Genghis Khan's tactics had changed. Now, not just massacre, but exile policy. He was taking skilled craftsmen and scholars to Mongolia, strengthening his empire. In 1227, at 65 years old, Genghis Khan fell ill. During the campaign against the Tangut kingdom, he had fallen from his horse, was injured. Old age and fatigue had consumed his body. On his deathbed, he gave his last advice to his sons, Ogedei, Chagatai, Jochi, and Tolui. Be united, expand the empire, but never forget Mongolian traditions. His most important warning was this: power comes from unity. If you are divided, you will be destroyed. His death was kept very secret. While his funeral was being taken to Burkhan Khaldun mountain in Mongolia, everyone encountered on the way was killed. The location of his grave was never revealed. It still cannot be found today. Genghis Khan's legacy continued to grow even after his death. His sons and grandsons expanded the empire from Europe to the Pacific. 1/5 of the world came under Mongolian rule. His real legacy was not in his military successes, but in the system he created. The law system called Yasa, the Yam postal network, trade security, religious tolerance. These were the foundations of the modern state. Genghis Khan was not only a conqueror, but also a modernizer. He broke feudalism, strengthened central authority, developed international trade. He laid the foundations of today's globalization. His most important feature was meritocracy. Not birth, but success was important. This approach increased social mobility, enabled talents to emerge. His religious tolerance was also noteworthy. He did not forcibly interfere with any religion, showed respect to all faiths. This policy ensured the stability of the empire. Modern research has also revealed Genghis Khan's genetic legacy. Today, 16 million men are descended from him. This is a record no human in history has achieved. His story is not just a war story. It is also a transformation story. From the orphan child of the steppe to world ruler. This transformation is one of the greatest individual achievements in human history. Genghis Khan's tragedy was that he became a victim of his own success. He had to constantly fight, never experienced peace. He conquered the world, but never found happiness. But this tragedy was also the source of his greatness, because he never stopped, never was satisfied, constantly chased bigger goals. This spirit made him a legend. In the modern world, Genghis Khan is a controversial figure. Some see him as a murderous dictator, some as a great leader. The truth is probably in between. He was both a creative and destructive force. His real significance is in his historical impact. He united East and West, started cultural exchange, contributed to the shaping of the modern world. Genghis Khan did not die. He became a legend. Even today he lives as a national hero in Mongolia and as a controversial figure in the world. His spirit shows itself in every great transformation, in every brave step, from Temujin to Genghis Khan. This was not just a name change, but one of the greatest personal transformations in human history. And the effects of this transformation still continue.